Salve discipuli. In this short lesson, we are going to be learning about Latin adjectives. There will be some review items and also some new information. Let's see what we already know about Latin adjectives. We know that adjectives describe nouns. This is true no matter what language we are working with: English, Latin, Spanish, French, German. Adjectives always describe nouns. Pronouns too, although sometimes we don't really notice so much pronouns being described. Nouns are the primary benefactor of the work of an adjective in a sentence. We also know that the ending on an adjective must be the same ending that is on the noun. Let's take a look at some of these examples. Puer ama pulchram puellam. Do you notice how pulchram and puellam both end with the letters am? This means that the word beautiful is describing the noun pulchram. In this next example, Rex dedit magnum donum laetae reginae. I have magnum, which has the same ending as donum, so I know that magnum is describing donum. And I also see an AE on laetae and reginae, so I know that they go together. The king gave a great gift to the happy queen. In this third example, we notice quite quickly that novum and oppidum both end with um, so that means they must stay together. The adjective novum is describing the noun oppidum. The Trojans will build a new town in Hesperia. Mostly this is what we're used to seeing and how we have come to understand we should work with Latin adjectives. But we are also seeing more frequently that sometimes the endings don't look the same. Puer amat caram matrem. The boy loves his dear mother. Now, sensically, it's only logical that caram, which means dear, should describe matrem, which means mother. Yet their endings don't look the same. Erps erit clara. Once again, logical thought will tell us that when we know the meaning of the vocabulary words, Erps is city, erit will be, and clara famous, that the sentence must say the city will be famous. But why doesn't clara have the same ending as Erps? Milites amabant magnum ducem. When we know the meaning of the vocabulary, milites soldier, amabant loved, magnum great, and ducem leader, we understand clearly that the sentence is communicating the soldiers, milites amabant loved, magnum ducem, their great leader or their great general. But again, why don't the endings on magnum and ducem look the same? This is the new piece of information that we're going to be focusing on. So what does the same really mean? When we think about same, we mean that they have to be identical. But when we are talking about adjectives, being the same means that both the noun and the adjective have the same gender. They will also have the same number, and they will share the same case. These three distinct attributes of a noun, gender, number, and case, are what the adjective must have the same of as the noun. We call this agreement. So what we want to begin saying when we talk about nouns and adjectives in Latin is that they do not have the same endings, but that the endings are in agreement. So from now on, remember that same means agreement. And that agreement means that both the noun and the adjective share the same gender, the same case, and the same number, even though the endings may look different. This is a very logical concept if you think about it, even in real life. For example, do you like pizza? I bet you're saying yes. So if you and I are in agreement, does that mean we have to look the same? I clearly doubt it. I'm sitting here wearing a blue dress with a blue sweater and I have glasses and purple hair. We do not look the same. I am certain of that. And yet we can all agree that pizza is delicious. So same doesn't have to mean agreement. You can be in agreement but not look the same. Nouns and adjectives function in this manner. Here's the challenge. Every adjective, just like every noun, belongs to a specific group, which we call a declension. That's not new vocabulary. We remember that from learning about nouns. It is the declension that the adjective belongs to, just like it is the declension that a noun belongs to, which dictates the specific endings that an adjective must use. Some adjectives that we will learn have endings that are from first and second declension, just like the noun endings, and some adjectives use endings that are for third declension, just like the noun endings. That's kind of nice because even though we're learning about endings or inflections for adjectives, we don't actually have to learn any brand new inflections. They're just recycled from what are already used for nouns. And if you think about it, that makes a lot of sense. Adjectives describe nouns, so it only makes sense that the inflections they use would also be identical or the same inflections. They share inflections. So let's take a look at how we can determine the declension or that a group that an adjective belongs to. As I stated, adjectives will use endings from either first and second declension or third declension, and that is what is going to name the group. So adjectives belong to either a group called first and second declension or to a group called third declension. In order to determine the declension of an adjective, you need to look at the nominative forms, and they are always the forms that are listed on the vocabulary list. Let's take a look at this short vocabulary list filled with first and second declension adjectives. We have multos aum, which means many or much. Novus aum, which means new. Pulcher, pulcra, pulcrum, which means beautiful. Noster, nostra, nostrum, which means our. And magnus aum, which can mean big, large, great, or loud. These forms are the nominative singular forms for an adjective. There are three because there are three genders for nouns. Nouns can be masculine, nouns can be feminine, and nouns can be neuter. And that means that an adjective has to have the ability to be all three of those genders. When you see an adjective listed on a vocabulary list, it is always listed by the nominative forms, usually singular, but sometimes they can be plural, and always so that the masculine form is first. Let me pull up a different color pen here. So this column is the masculine column. So you have multos, novus, pulcher, noster, and magnus. This is the feminine column. And they all end with A, and then this is the neuter column. If you pull out the handout that I gave you at the beginning of this lesson with the endings on for both nouns and adjectives, and you look at the columns for first and second declension nouns, what you will see is that the masculine and neuter are for second declension and the feminine is for first declension. So this is why they are called first and second declension adjectives. Sometimes our second declension adjectives use us as the nominative ending, and sometimes they use are as the nominative ending, and adjectives are no different. Whenever you see this arrangement of letters, either an us followed by an and an or an r followed by an and an you have found a first and second declension adjective. What does that mean? Well, look at that chart that I had you print before I started talking to you. It means that every adjective on this list, or any other adjective that has a nominative form like one of these, can only use those first and second declension adjective endings. You should notice that these look exactly the same as the first and second declension noun endings. Now let's take a look at how we're going to recognize third declension adjectives. Here's our first one, celer, celeris, celera, which means swift. Acer, acris, acre, which means bitter. Brevis, breve, which means short or brief. Omnis, omne, which means all or every. Ferox, ferocis, which means fierce. And ingens, ingentis, which means huge. Do you notice that there isn't one of these adjectives that has an us a or an r a pattern on its nominative singular forms? Did you notice that? I do start two of them with the letter R, celer and acer, but I don't see them followed by an a or an And for that reason, these are third declension adjectives, every one of them. So as long as you can remember what a first and second declension adjective looks like, if it doesn't look the same, then it has to be a third declension adjective. What does that mean? It means that all of these adjectives, when I use them, can only have on them the endings that are from the third declension part of the handout I gave you before the beginning of this lesson. The bottom right corner. Those are all of the inflections for third declension adjectives. You'll notice that they largely look identical to third declension noun endings. So this is the first thing that you have to be able to do when you see an adjective on a vocabulary list. You have to know what declension it belongs to so that in your head you can start thinking about what type of ending you're going to see on that adjective. Let's see if you can answer a few questions about identifying the declension of an